Today we're going to go over what differentiates a decent design, something that's pretty good, from something that's truly polished. Let's do this. Hey guys, I'm Izzy from Flux. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel. So, quick context, about a month ago, as many of you may already know, we ran a redesign challenge for our students, and they were tasked with redesigning this website. It's a company called Greenline, and what they do is they design and build shade structures, shade sails and shelters, basically these things. So pretty neat stuff. And so yeah, students were tasked with redesigning this website based on the company's goals and things of that nature. And a couple videos ago, we went over the top 5 and the winner. Shout out to Perez, the winner, and that was super exciting. But this time around, what we're going to do is go over 3 submissions that didn't make it into the top 5, talk about what could be improved. And I do want to commend these 3 people. We'll find out who in a few minutes, but I want to commend them for participating. It does take courage. So shout out to you. And I do also want to mention, and I did say this a few videos ago, I think, is it's always easy to be able to tell when a composition doesn't look quite right, but it's much, much harder to be able to pinpoint the exact causes, identify the things that could be improved. So that's our mission today, actually. We're going to try to identify those things. But without further ado, let's jump into the first person. So first first submission is by Nancy Peng. And so this is her redesign. And what I'd like for you guys to do is just, as I'm going over this, pause the video and try to pinpoint, 2 or 3 things that you think could be improved. So if you've done that, great. I'm going to go over and talk about what I think. So essentially, first thing is I really do like this shape that Nancy created, basically reminiscent of a shade sail with that nice subtle gradient. So well done on that. Otherwise, here are my comments. So first off, there's let's zoom out. This is the first thing I did basically when I saw this. Let's just move this over. First thing I noticed, I zoomed out, and when you zoom out, you really do realize just how much textual content is in this composition. It's very text heavy, which can be daunting for a user. And when you zoom out, you truly can tell. And so the first thing that I would probably do here is either reduce the amount of copy, reduce the text, or we could even just reduce the size of the text, maybe resize the text boxes a little bit, and do things of that nature. So that would probably be step number 1. Step number 2 is alignment. That's the second thing that I've noticed here is a few elements are sort of out of alignment. And so if we stay up top, the button, so the headline and subheader left aligned, but the button seems to be just kind of floating around. So what I would do is just bring this over here and left align it with everything else. And so already this area, in my opinion, looks a little bit more digestible, a little bit more approachable, and professional and cleaner and more orderly. So many adjectives. But that's another thing. And so keep in mind, so here's another alignment issue here. This is so much more important than people think. Make sure your alignment is on point. I don't think I'm seeing any other alignment issues. But yeah, I think that's good for alignment. Next thing I'd probably touch on is white space. And right off the bat, I do want to zoom out again, because I feel like seeing the big picture really gives us a good idea of what may be wrong, what can be improved. And if we zoom out, you'll notice there isn't too much spacing between the sections. It's all very condensed. It's all very proximal. And so what I would probably do is space out the sections. And a good example of this is not to toot our own horn, but the Flux website. So if we go through the Flux website, look at the space between every section. So space, space, space. There's a lot of white space. okay? And so it just makes, all of that space makes it seem like there's less content than there actually is. And so I would really focus on making sure your sections have enough spacing between each other. So let's kind of do that. Let's move these around a little bit. Okay, so we've added a little bit of white space. We've spaced out the actual sections, and you know, right off the bat, I think this looks so much more breathable. So make sure you space out your sections. Next thing I want to do, just in terms of white space, this form kind of looked off to me right off the bat. And it's because I realized that it would be so much more space efficient to have the labels also be the placeholders. So what we could do here is just move the labels and turn them into placeholders. I'm a Figma guy, so I'm kind of slow with this. Yeah, so we can just move these labels and turn them into placeholders. Oops. And so just like that, we're being so much more space efficient. It looks cleaner. It just looks right. And yeah, I think we're getting somewhere with this. And so the next thing I would probably do is, oh, this stuck out to me. So right off the bat, when I read the headline, the exclamation mark kind of threw me off. And I really do think that exclamation marks should be avoided in headlines. They just sound disingenuous, I think. Obviously, the intention wasn't to be insincere, but exclamation marks do come off as a bit disingenuous. So what I would do is I would remove the question mark, and I would actually go ahead and increase the size difference between the headline and the subtext, just because people are going to be scanning, right? A lot of people won't be reading the subtext. So if you can make the headlines easy to read and have the headlines stick out, or the headings stick out, then you've done a good job. So I think last thing is probably the hero image. When I saw this hero image, I thought, okay, great. Nancy used one of Greenline's actual photos for the hero, which is great. And it allows you to visualize their product. You know, you see a shade sail. But this photo does seem a little bit overexposed. So what I did was I threw it in Lightroom. And I threw it in Lightroom and just sort of improved it just a little bit. I don't even know if you can see that difference, but here, I'll do it before and after. Before, after. Before, after. And so yeah, those are the first few things that I would probably do. And yeah, I think right off the bat, this has been pretty decently improved. Okay, so that's Nancy. Again, I commend you, Nancy, for participating. Great job. Let's move on to the second submission. So next submission is by Norm Thomas. And so here's Norm's redesign. And I'll scroll through it. And what I encourage you guys to do is sort of pause the video and try to pinpoint maybe two or three things that you think could be improved in this design. Otherwise, I'll give you my comments. So I like to start off with what I think is good. And what Norm did that was awesome was he's one of the only people that included a frequently asked questions section. This wasn't outlined in the brief, but I think it's very pertinent to have a frequently asked questions section. And Norm took the initiative and included one. So good on you for that, Norm. Otherwise, here are my comments on things that can be improved. So, you know, when we zoom out, you kind of realize just how many different colors there are in this composition. So there's, let's kind of identify them here. There's this green button. There's this blue here. There's this gradient. There's So the button goes from green, and then now we got a blue button here. We have this button with a white stroke and gray text. And then yellow comes up out of nowhere. So we've got some yellow. Green text, and then the gradient changes. As you can see, we have a blue to yellow gradient now, and then a yellow button. And then we've got some blue text that kind of pops up out of nowhere. And the gradient sort of changes again. And so, you might look at this composition at first and be like, man, this is so chaotic. But really, I think it's just the fact that there's so many different colors and a few other things, which we'll go over in a bit. But it's the fact that there's so many different colors that makes it so chaotic. And so the first thing I would probably do is just harmonize the color palette and reduce the color count overall. And so we can do that. Let's just do that. Let's demo that in this section here. So this section, there's a blue button, and there's this button with white stroke and then the gray text. What I would do is change the text to white here in this button, and then maybe stay in line with the hero button because that's their color green. So I'd keep that, and then there's this eyebrow text, which is also gray, and I would probably make that white as well. And so just like that, we're already getting somewhere. The only thing here is this text probably doesn't pass the contrast check. So let's verify that. This is a Mac app called SIP, by the way. I'll leave the link in the description. So the foreground is white, and then the background is this sort of gradient. And you can see that it fails the contrast check. You want to hit at least 3.00. And so the next thing I'll probably do, I'm not going to do it now, it'll take too much time, is swap out the background for something else. But otherwise, this is headed in the right direction, I think. And so the next thing I believe is, and we'll stay on the same sort of topic here, is contrast. So we spoke about there's too many colors, too chaotic, but there's also very poor contrast in some areas. And the navbar is a great example of this. So if we look at this contact button, I can assure you it wouldn't pass the contrast check. And so what I would do is probably change the color of that contact button to something a little darker. But in fact, what we can do even before that is just change the color of this navbar altogether. I think a white could do. So let's see if we can, is the layer locked? Yes, it is. We can kind of remove that. Let's unlock everything. And change the color of the text. Change the color of the button, and then probably change that, and maybe get rid of that. Anyways, so right away the navbar is much more accessible, and so make sure you have a contrast checker on deck. Be mindful of that. Other places where contrast is sort of questionable in this composition would be these logos here. This overlay on top just makes them kind of hard to see. And then we spoke about the text. Other places, so this green text here would probably not pass a contrast check. And yeah, that's probably it for now. Otherwise, next thing on the list is, and this actually contributes to the chaotic nature of this composition, is just the fact that there's so many different visual styles here. So we have this blurry background sort of element, and then we've got gradients, we've got things with drop shadows, we've got photography and like these shapes and stuff. It does feel like there's a lot of different visual styles going on at the same time. So what I would do is pick one, okay? Pick one and stick with it. We're just going to remove this background blur for now. And so yeah, that's contributing to the chaotic nature of this. Less colors, stick to one visual style. And the next thing on the list is, we're looking at it right now, is the choice of image. So your visual, especially the one in the hero section, is extremely important. It needs to be of high quality, and it needs to represent, it needs to allow the user to visualize what it is that you're offering. And I do think that this misses the mark on both of those points. The image itself is of sort of low quality, and it also really doesn't, in my opinion, scream shade structures, shade sails. I just sort of see a building and then maybe, part of a shade structure. So what I would do here is sort of get rid of these overlays. And then I found an image on Greenline's website, which I will use as the hero image instead. So we can use something like this. We could even maybe perhaps move the image laterally to the right, because the busyness of the shade structure is making the text a little hard to read, which is why I added this black gradient. But otherwise, we're sort of getting somewhere. Just look at the hero section on its own. We're sort of getting somewhere. It does look very standard, but at least it's much more accessible and more professional and orderly looking. So I think that was all I had in terms of Norm. Again, thank you, Norm, for your submission. Hope to see you in future competitions. Let's move on to the third and final submission. Okay, next we have Valeria Nakushnova. I hope I said that last name right. And so Valeria actually did a really good job. There's just a few things here and there that I do want to point out. And so right off the bat, the things that I think Valeria did really well is, so she's got a search here, which I think looks great. The layout of the hero section, layout of the type in the hero section, I think is unique. Nobody did this, and I think it works. And my favorite thing of all is the way she added these kind of lines overflowing, kind of flowing out of the image. And I thought that it was a nice visual direction that she was taking this in. Really, really cool. So Valeria, good on you for this. Here are my comments. So first off, I don't think that this hero image does this composition a lot of justice. It feels like a photo that was kind of zoomed in. It's just too close up. I don't know what it is. Obviously, the business sells shade structures, so you can assume that it's a shade structure, but it'd be nice to see the entire thing. So that's my first gripe. And then the next thing is, if we jump into the lower half here, so the process. So this is the company's process. They consult, design, and construct. And I do believe that when you're showing off a process, having visuals there, either an icon, images, or a video, is helpful, because people are not going to... Text is very, very daunting. There's a lot of text. If you can include icons or any kind of imagery or visual, it can make the composition that much more scannable. So that's number two. Number three is there's a little bit of redundancy in certain areas. For example, we have two sections here. We have the how we work section. So you can see right here, and really it says really small, how we work. Then under it, our approach. But then here you talk about the approach, and here you give the process. These, I feel like these could just be one section. This top one feels maybe perhaps a little bit redundant. In any case, simplify. That's the name of the game, in my opinion. So redundancy, be wary of it. And then the last thing is, don't overdo consistency. Consistency is great, in having a, consistent visual language throughout your compositions is fantastic and important. But if you overdo it, it can be a little detrimental. Here's what I mean. So second section, here we see projects. These are the projects completed by Greenline, and they have this sort of style about them. But then we scroll all the way down, and we get to testimonials. These are actual testimonials, but to me, they kind of just looked like maybe more past projects or news, or maybe blog previews of blog posts. They did not appear to be, I almost missed these. I didn't think these were testimonials. So what I'm trying to say is differentiate between your content types, your testimonials and your, past projects. should be different enough that I don't miss them. But otherwise, those are the sort of pieces of advice that I had, things that can be improved in this composition. Valeria, I think you did a great job regardless. The direction that you took this in, I think, was really cool. So I commend you on that. Well done. So again, thank you, Nancy, Norm, and Valeria for participating. We hope to see you in future competitions. Otherwise, I do want to mention we're opening the doors to the Webflow Masterclass pretty soon. So check out the link in the description to get on the wait list. We'll let you know as soon as our doors open. So make sure to check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.